Greetings, greetings. Welcome back to another fantastic and historical episode of the Death, Taxes, and Sports podcast. My name is Jeff Long. I'm here with two of my esteemed colleagues, Mr. Ben Holloway and Mrs. Marisa Tigney. How are y'all doing today?
Amazing.
Awesome. And again, congratulations on a fantastic anniversary.
Thank
Ben,
you.
how are you, sir?
Doing great.
Awesome. So, looks like we got a little bit of a Celtics discussion to get to today, folks. NBA Finals, Rory McIlroy's complete flop was just absolutely hilarious. And Stanley Cup Finals and some baseball talk. But first, technically just due to time, we're just going to give you the floor just all in all on just your overall thoughts of the NBA Finals, high level, whatever you want to go, wherever you want to go with it. We're just going to give it to you just for the sake of time. Your thoughts, NBA
brothers and sisters of Dallas. Right now, you're in mourning. I completely understand that you thought that possibly with Kyrie and Luka that maybe, just maybe, that there was going to be a chance where you were going to compete with the number one seed that would be the Boston Celtics, the other dynamic dual tandem of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Here's the issue, Dallas. You should not hang your head up on what the Dallas Mavericks has accomplished. Why? Because of the fact that this team was not predicted to go this far. This was supposed to be a it's supposed to be a Boston Celtics, Minnesota Timberwolves final until wonderful play from Kyrie, from Luka, from the supporting cast happened. With this particular team, however, even though that one game did get in and people have speculated that the Boston Celtics let them win, quote unquote, because of the fact that they wanted to close out the series in 5 in Boston in front of their home crowd, sold out crowd. However, the situation is and how people may speculate, but let's keep it 100. Let's keep it a buck. The Boston Celtics not only had Jason Tatum and not only did they have Jaylen Brown, but they had the fragile unicorn, as I called him on this show, who just went off after having 38 games missed and basically putting a stuffing and frustrating every single one of the Mavericks players in the paint. And then also, hey, by the way, he still can shoot threes from the arc when, he can shoot over smaller guys. We discussed that on the last show. But they have a supporting cast and they have people that will come off of the bench and help them out. I mean, not only did he do it once, but he did it twice at half court before halftime, and that was Peyton Pritchard. They have key players that will do things that need to be done. Al Horford at 38, finally feeling the pinnacle of what a championship should be. Nevertheless, Dallas Mavericks, some of your supporting cast did not show up. And the one that should have showed up during this series did not show up, which was disappointing, was Kyrie Irving. And I know that we're going to get further into this discussion about him and his lack of support when he needed the support. And when I was watching the post-conference last night, gentlemen, and I was seeing, Luka, and the media was saying that he was isolating himself from the players at the end of the game and all of that. And then he took the bulk of the blame and said that he did not show up for many games. Now, mind you, how many injuries, and Ben, you can look up the stats because you're a brilliant statistician. How many injuries did Luka have? I mean, literally, he was like one arm sleeve away, one chest sleeve away, one head sleeve away, just basically.
Is there such a thing as 8 injuries at the same time? Because that's what it felt like.
I mean, how many times did we see?
4.
Right. How many times did we see, gentlemen, where he was questionable for game 2, questionable for game 3, questionable for game 4 because of the knee injury, a leg injury, an ankle injury, a foot injury, whatever it was. Luka shouldn't feel down about the ability that he had to fight through injuries. Yes, there were some things, and we talked about this in detail. The turnovers were a problem, a massive problem. Points in the paint was a problem. Defense, when needed to be done, was a problem. I mean, literally, even though he busted half of his tooth out, Derek White still came back and was shooting their lights out. Drew Holiday. I mean, what else can you say about the man? It was just a valuable asset that Brad Stevens brought in, and I felt bad, really felt bad, and a lot of Celtics fans were upset about the fact that Marcus Smart should have been part of this championship. And he was traded out, and some things that Brad Stevens orchestrated, and give that man some credit for putting this team together, for pulling a Drew Holiday that really wanted to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks and felt like he was part of the family. But the Milwaukee Bucks right now is punching air for getting rid of him for Dame Lillard, which, that's here nor there. But what I will say this to the Dallas Mavericks fans in conclusion is this. They have nothing to hang their heads about. This was a team that was not predicted to be there. Luka and Kyrie, mostly Luka, then sometimes Kyrie did finally show up when needed, but it was disappointing to see Kyrie not show up when they were in Boston. And I know he had to block out a lot of the noise because of his past relationship with the team when he was on the team. They have a lot of work to do in the offseason. They need to free up some cap space, and they need to release some players. And I've said this, and I said this to you all in a text. It was disappointing for the no-show abilities of Maxi Kleber not showing up when he needed to be. The supporting cast was a hit or miss. Derek Lively Jr., Goddard.
Don't worry, I got Kleber when we're talking about the head coaching, because that's mostly on Kidd, but sorry to interrupt.
I was going to go into that, and I was going to pass it on to you, because there were certain parts in there where Coach Kidd, I was just disappointed on how he orchestrated of players that he put in that he shouldn't have put in, and Kleber was one of them who was in the game too friggin' long, i.e. last night. When you're seeing him struggling, basically he was 0 for 5 for everywhere, every time he touched the ball, yet you still have him in the game and you're not utilizing your players like you should. I mean, that's an issue, Ben.
Yeah, go for it with Kleber, Ben.
Okay, so, and this is mostly on the coaching, because clearly he was not right. I threw out game 4 because that's completely irrelevant. The plus minus in that game for every Mav was completely slanted. Game 4 is irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. So Maxi Kleber, give him credit, comes back from a serious shoulder injury that was expected to be out, another month or two. He comes back, tries his hardest, comes back, but he couldn't play. So
Ben, let me ask you this real quick, and then once you finish, did you see, in Jeff too, and I'll throw this out to you, did it seem like he played scared? Because the Maxi Kleber that I've seen him play. That's okay. Because the Maxi Kleber that we've seen that plays with confidence, that goes into the paint, that stuffs it hard into the hole when he's available and open. There was many times where he was open and he was hesitant. And I understand you pass it to the next player and everything else, but when the pathway was for you able to make that easy too, you didn't do it.
Last night where he had a layup right on the rim, nobody there.
There it is. Yes.
There. But give him credit for coming back. But the coaching staff, he should have never played past game 1. And I'm about to outline why, because I had to go on the numbers on this. So the 4 losses, like I said, we are throwing out game 4. Maxi Kleber in game 1, game 2, game 3, game 5. The 4 losses. He had a total of 46 minutes played. In 46 minutes, he scored 4 points. 46 minutes, 4 points. And he's a big, right? 6'10", whatever he is. In 46 minutes, he had 6 rebounds. So I'm going to repeat that because it's so insane. 4 points and 6 rebounds in 46 minutes. And a negative 41 plus minus in those 4 games. Negative 41. He should have never touched the floor after game 1. Game 1, he was negative 15 in plus minus in 19 minutes. Last night, it was negative 12 in 13 minutes. Game 3 was even worse, plus minus. He only played 8 minutes. It was negative 13. Like, Jason
Why
Kidd,
was he in there? Why was he in the game?
And not only should he have not played after game 1, seriously, because he helped the Celtics. Him in the game helped the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
And who should have been playing in all of those minutes was your 3rd leading scorer in the regular season, Tim Hardaway Jr., who you dusted off the bench after 2 or 3 weeks of not playing. And guess what? He didn't play well. And then in the game 4 route, he got hot in the 4th quarter.
Yep.
So obviously the game was over. But in that game, it's like, bro, you earned meaningful minutes in game 5. Did he get it? No. So I cannot lay off Jason Kidd on that decision. Pretty much every minute Kleber played, Hardaway Jr. should have played.
Yep.
And we would probably still be playing right now.
I mean, those are the things that those are the things that you're going to look back on. I mean, those are things that look back on. But at the end of the day, though, ladies and gentlemen, they had a chance in some of these games to win.
Mm-hmm.
They had a chance. You think that if Luka
tons of chances,
right? You would think if Luka was maybe in a little bit more shape and he didn't get into foul trouble and he actually paid attention a little bit more on defense, they would have it. But but if you're looking at this team in like the bigger picture, the difference with this run versus the run where they made the Western Conference Finals a couple of years ago is that you can at least see, Tignan, you can at least see the future and see that there are some semblance of a champion that's in the making, right?
Yeah.
All going to be on Luka at this point as far as his conditioning and how serious he's going to take it, because I know that Kyrie played bad, but I think that Kyrie also reincarnated himself to what we think about him, like moving forward, because all of the other antics and that Boston thing he's going to have to get over. But there's just so much more to this Dallas team that they have potential for. I just think that they probably need a little bit more scoring from their bigs. But I'll toss it back to you, Benedict.
That is so true. It's 100%. And here's the thing, gentlemen. When I look back at this series, do you know when this series was over? This series was officially over Game 4 when the Mavericks won and the streamers were all coming from the ceiling. They knew that when they went to Boston that it was going to be a wrap. So let's celebrate this now. Let's celebrate this 31-32 point win now, because we know doggone well it's not going to be a Game 6 coming back here. Let's all enjoy this moment now and bask in this amazing winning situation now that we finally got one, that we were not swept off of the court.
Marisa, I didn't mean to interrupt. I know you got to go, but god dang, that was kind of pathetic.
That 100%.
You're celebrating a blowout win when you're down 3-0.
Because Ben, they knew.
You're a professional team. This is not like Division 3.
I mean, I get it.
Ben, they knew they were done. They knew they were done, and there was no way they were going to go to Boston.
Yeah, but it doesn't make it less pathetic.
Two parts. When the streamers came down and when the camera zoomed in on Joe Mazzulla right around, I want to say the 4 or 5 minute mark, when the cameras were zooming in on him and you saw the wheels in his head turning and he was chomping at the bit because he was doing a countdown in his head when Game 5 was going to happen, because he was going to formulate a plan to get those guys to close out not only in Boston, but they was going to close out and make a statement. And you saw it, and the body language of Joe Mazzulla was, all right, game on, because we about to shut this down. Let them enjoy their little 31-point victory. Let them enjoy this moment, because they're not coming back here after Game 5. And you saw the whole calculation on his face going. I was like, man, and I was talking to my husband. We were watching the game. I was like, they better enjoy this now. And he was even laughing at the streamers. I said, no, the moment started when Joe Mazzulla, they had that camera on him, 4 or 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. He was like, we about to make the biggest statement in Game 5.
But before you do go, we got to get to this Tatum thing, because I just have Tatum, the first player to lead in a lot of the major statistical categories and not win Finals MVP. But when I look at it, I actually agree with Jaylen Brown being the MVP, because I think it was more than just about the stats. When I look at the crunch time, when I look at they won, here's what I'm going to say. The Celtics won this championship more because of what Jaylen Brown did versus Jason Tatum. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, I believe that Jaylen Brown was worthy. But in the long run, when we consider Jason Tatum potentially in the pantheon of greatest of all time when his career is done, if he never wins another championship again, him not having a Finals MVP in the long run is going to make a difference. In the long term. Short term, no. But Jason Tatum is trying to get into the all-time greats category. And we said the same thing about Steph Curry. If you can prove that you can be the best player on the championship team at least once, it's hard for me to put you in that forever superstar category.
And pause, weren't they trying to make a deal to get rid of Jaylen Brown? I find that kind of fascinating, funny that after 2022, when they played the Warriors. That was the comeback year for Klay Thompson after 2 ACLs, back-to-back years that he was out, that this Warriors team that went to the finals and they played this up-and-coming Boston Celtics team. We have talked about this numerous times on the show, that after all was said and done, the Ime Udoka foolishness that happened and he was gone. Joe Mazzulla, is he the right guy that's going to lead this team and take this team where it needs to go? Brad Stevens, is he going to bring in the right pieces? Is Marcus Smart going to still be there? I'm losing the members that I had, but none of us saw that Drew Holiday was going to come in, or Kristaps Porzingis was going to come in, or Marcus Smart was not even going to be on this team. And, let alone Joe Mazzulla trying to lead this team. We all had doubts. I mean, I surely did. I made a little segment about it earlier on my TikTok and on my Instagram account that, I need to give this man his flowers, that he needs to be respected as a coach. You got 5 of those players that got big contracts, and one of them included is going to get a massive contract, and that's Jason Tatum. Okay, so you got Jaylen Brown that's got a massive contract. You have Derek White that has a massive contract. They need to pay Joe Mazzulla. I mean, he proved himself. I don't know what kind of deal that they're going to have on the offseason, but it just went and showed all of us that this man can coach. This man is strategic. This man took down a lot of opponents, and he basically pretty much embarrassed the Dallas Mavericks. And Jason Kidd, who's had longer head coaching experience than Joe Mazzulla has. And so all of these things that factor into the success of the Boston Celtics, Jeff, I think that, and I agree with you 100% that the right person got the Bill Russell most valuable player. But now with this, we're going to see a Jason Tatum be within a year or two considered for MVP, regular season MVP. The way that he adjusted his game in game 3, not so much in game 4, but to that leadership role that people have been wondering and being, having questions on of can he be that leader on the floor, or if he's not going to be that leader, who's going to be the one that's going to have his back and so forth, and all those questions there. I think when all is said and done and the parade is over with and the confetti is all, swept up off the ground and everything else, I think we're going to see a Jason Tatum that's hungry, that's going to be hungrier than ever to not only prove to the fact, and let's keep it real at 100, part of him wanted to win that MVP. Part of him wanted to win an MVP. I mean, even though that he did wonderful, a poker face and, and his teammate Jaylen Brown. And yes, he deserved it.
For about like a half second.
Yeah.
You can see his body right after they announced it. Like literally like a half second. He was like.
Because it started with a J and then the next letter A. And then it was like wait a minute. Hold on. J-A-Y.
He gave a little stink look for like a half second.
Not J-A-Y-S-O-N. And so he had to fix his face real quick because he's like, yes.
I'm glad you saw
it. He did it. Or caught it.
He gave a little stank look real quick.
Real quick. And he had to fix his face immediately. And for those of us that caught it, I was just like, okay, that's going to sit with him in the offseason. Yeah. And that's going to be where he's going to man, we're going to do everything we can to run it back. But I'm going to be that nasty such and such that's going to prove myself to everybody that I'm that guy. Now that I got 1, I want 2. Plus I want that hardware of MVP. Plus try to go for the regular season MVP. All of this is brewing inside of him right now. So when all of this everything is said and done with the parade, we're going to see a whole new Jason Tatum come out next season. Watch.
Thanks. Ben?
Yeah, so I think I also agree with Jaylen Brown getting it, and part of it has to do with I don't have next level stats or advanced stats, but I'm pretty sure that Jaylen Brown covered Luka more than anybody else. And even
he did, because Joe Mazzulla put a beautiful plan on him to do so.
And then even though Luka put up good numbers overall, which I'm going to say his numbers for the entire playoffs because he was injured after game 1 of the first round. Mm-hmm. And then subsequently got injured and more injured. So I'm going to give him a little bit of love, but I'll go there in a second for his whole playoffs for Luka. On Tatum, Jaylen Brown, primary defender on Luka, made Luka's life hell. I agree with Jaylen Brown getting the MVP. that defensive intensity, the leadership. He was very vocal. He said it before the season after Marcus Smart left. He needed to be more vocal. He was. The overall stats for the finals, Tatum is 22 points, rounding up, 8 rebounds, 7 assists. Jaylen Brown, 21 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. So it's a minimal difference. Tatum was slightly better in all 3 categories. But, I think because of the leadership and because of the defense, I have no issues with Jaylen Brown getting it. And in the short term, it doesn't mean anything. Jeff, I'm glad you brought up the Curry thing because for a long time he hadn't gotten a Finals MVP. So right now, it doesn't mean anything that Tatum didn't get Finals MVP. As his career progresses and if they win more and he still doesn't, then that's going to be a different conversation.
Right.
Marisa, real quick, though, on getting regular season MVP, the team's too good. He's not going to have the numbers because the team is too good. He's not going to have the MVP numbers because the entire team is so good.
They're deep.
They're so good. To me, it's like those football teams you see, McCaffrey and Debo taking MVP votes from each other. It's just there's too many dudes on Boston, I think, for him to get regular season MVP, which is fine. That's not a criticism of him. You got a great team around you. But to get Finals MVP, he definitely can control that and get that. But for the short term, nothing really negative on Tatum.
Real quick, Ben, with Jason Tatum, when it comes to narratives, because you know how much I love the narrative, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Tatum is a variant of a superstar. What I mean by that is that he does not have that killer in him. Jaylen Brown does.
Mm-hmm.
You have to accept the fact that as talented as Jason Tatum is, this series run is the perfect. It's just the perfect resemblance of why they have not been able to get over the hump. Mm-hmm. Because we have looked for Jason Tatum to be that 1A, Jaylen Brown the 1B. It's reversed. Mm-hmm. Jaylen Brown is the 1A, Jason Tatum is the 1B, but Jason Tatum is probably the best damn 1B that you could have in the league. And that's just the reality of it. It just is what it is. We can't expect at this point.
Can't go by overall skill level because overall skill, we can all agree Tatum is a little bit more skilled than Jaylen Brown. But we're not going overall skill. We watch the games. Yeah. We watch you play. And we can see that whether it's 1A, 1B, or they're both 1As, I'm not – that's, for me, a different discussion for another day. I think they're both great. I think they need each other. We've now finally can say that the pair can work. Not that it works great, to be honest, because, frankly, you should have more than one championship at this point. But it can work based upon the parts around them. But I think still, to be honest, I think it's a little bit of an underachievement that this is their first one, without question.
And they were so close 2 years ago, yeah.
A little bit of an underachievement for sure. But real quick, before we get to Kyrie, because I know we're going to go there next, which I ain't going to be nice to him either, but call it what it is. Your numbers are your numbers. I want to give a little credit to Mazzulla, because going into the series, everybody would say that Dallas Mavericks head coach Jason Kidd, the head coaching favored Dallas. That is absolutely not how it played out. Mazzulla played every card pretty much perfectly to a T. My only real criticism, to be honest, was last night Porzingis kind of hurt you more than helped you. Kind of helped the Mavs when Porzingis was on the court. I thought after the first time he checked out, I thought he wasn't going to go back in. I get it, the presence and all that, but he was clearly, he's dealing with a couple of, speaking of injuries, he's dealing with a couple of bad ones. Porzingis was kind of a net negative for the Celtics last night, but honestly, it's hard to think of him, really any other criticism of Mazzulla, because game 4, you just toss it out completely. It's like the same exact thing as the first season KD was with the Warriors. They go up 3-0 on Cleveland. Cleveland gets game 4 at home. They beat them by like 20 points. And then game 5, Golden State wins. It's like the same exact thing. So I can't really criticize Missoula for Game 4.
And shout out to Missoula for coaching the whole entire postseason with a torn meniscus.
I mean,
he had a torn meniscus from the training conditioning that he does because he's in, I think they said he's in martial arts, and he had a torn meniscus. Wouldn't know it because he was that focused.
I mean, the injuries, though, I think, and this kind of goes into the last part of this, discussion. Can the Celtics win two more? We'll get to Kyrie, but just real quick, when we're talking about them in the future with 2 more championships, and we'll get to Kyrie, and I know you got to go. The Porzingis thing for them in the long term is a huge, huge, huge concern. A huge concern because they won this. They won this championship to his performances in 2 games, but when it comes to he didn't play pretty much at all this series, and you have him locked up for a good amount of money for the next couple of years.
Yeah,
they are not necessarily the biggest team, so if they're going to continue to get better, they're going to have to find a way to address that big man situation because Al Horford, as great as he has been,
I think this is his swan song.
Yeah, right? They gotta get something.
Their plus minus was decreasing after every minute he played past minute 30.
I was gonna say 30. Yeah, 30.
Right? So that magical number is 30 minutes.
Yep.
After that, so they have but they got a lot of money tied up, and I just think it's going to be hard for them to repeat because the salary cap situation, all that. But Tig, I know you got to go. We'll toss it to you, then Ben.
No, I was going to say this real quick about Brad Stevens and the brilliancy that he has done putting this together, and something that they're going to have to check out off season. And I agree with you, gentlemen, especially with the Porzingis thing and what they're going to do with him. I mean, yes, he is locked in for a couple of years because of that contract that he got. But let's just recap of what he did to get to this point to have this team win last night. He traded Kemba Walker for Al Horford. Al Horford's been on the Celtics before because he was drafted with the Atlanta Hawks first, then had a stint with the Boston Celtics, went to 2 more teams, and then came back in 2021. They were thinking about trading Jaylen Brown, but didn't. Traded Langford for Derek White. Traded Marcus Smart for Porzingis and 2 first-round picks. Then re-signed Jaylen Brown. Then they traded Brogdon Williams for Holiday, and then re-signed Porzingis and Holiday. And then now they win the championship. So you got several of these players that I just mentioned that's locked in this big contracts for the next 2 to 3 years. You're getting ready to pay Tatum royally by about $315, $325, okay, with that contract for 5-6 years. So when you look at it, how are you going to get some help in the long run, especially with, and they, like we said, Kristaps Porzingis is, there for 2 years, but you have to get that help of experience there because yes, he played phenomenal in game 1, looked like he didn't miss a step whatsoever. And then of course the announcement comes that he's questionable for 2 and he didn't play 2, 3, 4, played a little bit in 5. And then, that was it. So kudos to Brad Stevens for putting this team together. But then now what? When, the possibilities, what is it that's needed for this team to run it back?
Marisa, real quick, the next 5 years, do they win 2 more?
I'd say 1. I don't know about 2. Reason being because, again, you got these people that are locked in several contracts, and one of them being Porzingis, and he's just, we're watching his body break down before our eyes, gentlemen. As talented as he was when he first was drafted, I don't know how many years ago he's been in the league now. 8 years? 7 years, 8 years?
2016, I think. I'm going off memory, but I think 2016.
Yeah, 2016. Yeah. So we're seeing him just slowly just break down, and he came in when?
No, I'm saying I don't know for a fact, but my educated guess is 2016.
Yeah. And so we're seeing his body break down. And so you got that contract of his for 2 years, so he's locked in. So I can see them winning 1. I can see them, possibly getting back, pretty much running the East. But again, depending on what this draft is going to produce and how these teams in the East are going to produce off season, the Boston Celtics are prime and ready to get back there. I would say they could win another championship. I don't think it's going to be back to back because you're going to see several of these teams cook. And I know that we'll get into that, on future shows and down the road. But 2 championships, I don't see it happening, just for the sheer fact of who they have locked in place right now. And Kristaps has just got a question mark to me.
Yeah, I'll be quick on that. 2 more rings in 5 years. No, I agree. They win 1 more. Let's hit on Kyrie quick, and then we'll move on to some NBA playoff runs, top 5 NBA runs. Kyrie in Boston. The numbers have to be said. They just have to. Please, so bad please. They have to be said. So in 3 games, he scored 43 points.
Mm-hmm.
3 games, 43 points in Boston, which, by the way, that's 14.3 per game, which is season average was 25. So 25 and 14, that's a pretty big gap.
So forget the Sage. It was just kryptonite that was all in the Boston Garden every time he stepped in it.
It's worse than that, than the total points. Field goals, 18 for 53.
Jesus.
34%. 18 for 53.
That's like rookie year.
Yeah, but it gets worse. I guess it gets worse. On 3-pointers, 3 for 17.
Jeez.
Like, you cannot, as great as you are, which you proved in Game 3 and Game 4 at home, by the way, as great as you are, you absolutely cannot escape criticism for your performance in Boston, which clearly that's still in his head. I didn't think it was. I thought he had mentally matured. Well, he has matured. He definitely has matured. So I thought he had gotten to a point where that Boston crowd.
Something about the Garden. Something about that Garden.
I was wrong, along with millions of others. There's still some ghosts in Boston. He still hasn't played well in Boston, and it's clearly in his head. But at the same time, even if that is true, we can't just be like, it's in his head mentally, so, we'll give him a pass. You can't get a pass when you're that good. When you're the best one-on-one dribbler ever. You cannot get a pass. You can't. So he cannot escape criticism for how he performed in Boston. Those are just pedestrian numbers, and there's no doubt about it. In order for the Mavs to extend this series, make it a longer series, he needed to show up at least once in Boston. He didn't show up at all.
At least game 2.
At least
game 2.
Play well once out of 3 times in Boston. That's not too much to ask. So that's all I had on Kyrie.
Sorry, but breaking news, Willie Mays died today.
Wow. That is definitely breaking news.
Yeah. You heard it first from Taxes and Sports people, Willie Mays. But we'll keep it to that. But Tigney, did you have any other final thoughts on this lovely topic? Because Kyrie, man, I get the finals, but he's already a champion, and I am not going to beat him down as much because of the antics were not there. And
he deserves credit for his maturity, his leadership with the Mavericks. He's gotten better off the court, on the court. He's definitely helped Luka. Luka's given him the most praise possible. His leadership on that team.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not saying he's been bad, because overall he's been a net positive for Dallas without question. Question.
Yeah, I'm not.
But in big moments when the spotlight is big, they need him.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that was disappointing to not see him. Obviously, game 1, you want to have your best. It wasn't the best for none of that team. I know Luka did the best that he could. Kyrie was like literally Casper in a Dallas Mavericks uniform, and the rest of the supporting cast did not show up. So you would think you would make the improvements in game 2. And it didn't happen. And so you can lead the team, but you have to lead by example. The example wasn't there, and we didn't see that in the numbers that Ben read are absolutely horrific. They're horrible numbers. That's something that like a really nervous first-year NBA player would have, those kind of numbers. I wouldn't expect that from someone that's a veteran. I would expect better for someone that's a veteran. And so it was just disappointing, and this is something that they're going to have to think about during the offseason and how they're going to make it better and how they could possibly run it back and have an opportunity to win a championship.
Facts on facts. Facts on facts. But yeah, that was a very spirited conversation about these NBA finals. I definitely look forward to seeing for us to have a little bit more conversation. But let's kind of keep this thing going here. And Tiffany, thanks for joining. Appreciate it again.
We appreciate you.
Thank you. Thoughts and prayers to Willie Mays, a legend, an absolute legend, a goat. Thinking about his family, may his memory be a blessing.
No doubt. But hey, much love, Tiffany. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Marisa.
All right. Benny boy.
Top
all right,
5 NBA most dominant playoff runs.
Yes,
you want first?
I'm gonna throw you a bone first, man. I'm gonna go a little bit different here because I think there was gonna be some obvious ones. So I really try to think outside the box. The first
name your 5. Go in any order you want. Best to worst or worst to best.
All right, so I'm just gonna it's just all a little blend, and then I'll let the listeners. So the first one I'm gonna go with is the 1983 76ers. 12-1 record. They beat the Knicks, who were 44-38, Milwaukee 51-31, and then the Los Angeles Lakers had a 58-24 record. Their opponent win-loss percentage was .622, and the team only lost once. So I think that when you lose once and you beat those teams, then I'm going to go with the 99 Spurs. They had a 15-2 record, almost a 90% win percentage, around 88%. The Hall of Famers that they defeated, because I also think this is important. They beat Kevin Garnett, Kobe, and Shaq. They went on to sweep them. After one loss, they went ahead and won 12 games in a row, and Duncan played 43 minutes or more in 17 of those games. We got 89 Pistons here, 15-12 record, 88% game winning percentage, which is tied for 4th all time. Those opponents that they had defeated were Boston, Milwaukee, Chicago, and the Lakers. And this Hall of Fame list, just going to leave it. Dennis Johnson, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, and James Worthy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this Pistons team was one of the best teams ever. I mean, they were equipped with so much. They won 63 games. But we also have to include the 91 Bulls, 15-2 record. They had beaten the Knicks, the Philadelphia, Detroit, and LA. Again, putting some Hall of Famers in a perspective of who they beaten. Patrick Ewing, Charles Barkley, Joe Dumars, Dennis Rodman, Isaiah Thomas, Magic Johnson, and James Worthy. And then just number 1 I have to put up here is the 2001 Lakers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
2001. I knew I had a
3-peat and 15-1 record.
I mean, dog. I mean, that was a 94% win percentage, man. I mean, you're talking about beating Portland. All of their opponents that they beat had won 50 games or more during the regular season. Portland 50-32, Sacramento 55-27, Sacramento 58-24, and Philadelphia 56-26. Hall of Famer Scottie Pippen, Arvydas Sabonis, Tim Duncan, David Robinson, Allen Iverson, Dikembe Mutombo. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, we got a lot of the same teams in roughly the same order. You went into a lot of detail, so I'll just kind of name the teams. I'm going to go 5-1, 1 being the most dominant. 5 for me was that 1983 76ers, 12-1 record. 1991 Bulls was number 4 for me, which 15-2 record, pretty damn good. Go through the Knicks, the Pistons, the 76ers. You know, you highlighted a lot of the stars, so we did a lot of research and we got a lot of the same. So anyways, number 4, 91 Bulls. Number 3, 1989 Pistons, 15-2. Same, you highlighted, who they beat and all that. For me, number 2, 2001 LA Lakers, 3-peat, 15-1 record, extremely dominant. And although, to be fair, they did what they were supposed to do and it was expected and this and that, 2017 Warriors, you go 16-1. Start the playoffs 15-0. Yeah. Give up a game 4, get blown out. Cleveland gets 1 game. Start out with 15 wins in a row. Like, I know they had a ton of talent, like ridiculous talent, but you still got to win. And start the playoffs 15-0. So for me, 2017 Warriors finished the playoffs 16-1. That would be tiny bit above 2001 Lakers, but a lot of similarities. So.
I didn't want to say that because I had a feeling you were going to do it. So that's why I wanted to go. I really wanted to go 70 honorable mention, 71-72 Lakers.
Yep.
I mean, Boston, those great 60s Boston Celtics teams. But
We
definitely
should
want
throw
to.
in that. We should throw in. It wasn't record wise, but we should definitely throw an honorable mention to 2016 Cavs.
Oh,
Only
yeah.
team to come back 3-1, and your 73-9 Golden State Warriors come back from 3-1 in the finals. Like, yeah, their overall record for the playoffs wasn't, didn't match that. But you're the only team in NBA history to come back from 3-1, and you won 2 of those games at arguably the loudest arena before they moved in the entire league at Oracle. Like, and there were 73-9. Like, they got to be honorable mention for sure.
And
Just
then,
for
guess what? This is the perfect segue into Rory, because
yeah.
what about a goddamn choke job? And I'm gonna let you go with I'm gonna let you run with this. This is your thing, but Rory, he's done. This is to me. I don't like to, because of the longevity of golfers. They could play a very long time, but I do not think that Rory will ever win a major ever again. And I think this is a career ender as far as his viability. I mean, he had everything in front of him. But just for the audience, feel free to break it down exactly what happened.
Yeah, so he has, as I've said in the past, since 2014, and he will be again this year. So it'll be 11 years straight where he has finished in the top 10 in official world golf rankings. He will again this year, which will be 11 years in a row. Last major championship was 2014 PGA. Now, I at like 6 o'clock on Sunday, I was like, if he wins this, if he closes the deal, because it wasn't done yet, but if he does, I was like, you know what? He's going to win the British Open next month, because he grew up on links courses, and this will give him all the confidence in the world that he can win another major. And growing up Northern Ireland, that's the courses they played on are links courses. So I was like, if he can finish the deal, I was like, you know what? I'll pick him to win the British Open as well. But clearly, he didn't. So he had a 2-shot lead, 5 holes left. On 3 of the last 4 holes, he makes a bogey, and the distance is horrible on a couple of them. On the 16th hole, 2.5 feet for par. Missed. On the 18th hole, 3 feet 9 inches. Missed. The first one, the 2.5 footer, this year in 2024, he had 496 putts inside 3 feet. It was 496 out of 496. Clearly not anymore. And he still had a chance after those bogeys on 18. If he made that par putt, would have put a lot of pressure on Bryson DeChambeau. He didn't. He bogeyed. It's a bad choke job, and I agree with you. I don't care how many times he's gotten close now. That, to me, that is just a huge confidence. Like, just that hurts your ego, man. That hurts your confidence. That the next time he's at a Sunday in a major in the lead or close to the lead, what is the absolute first thing he's going to think about? Is what just happened. That self-doubt is going to creep in. And it's not only that, he's had a ton of close calls. Since that 2014, he has the most top 10 in majors, which is 20. And he has the most top 5s in majors, which he has 9 top 5s.
I mean,
he's there. He's around. He's on the weekend. He's relevant, but he can't close the deal.
That's what makes golf, and that's what makes what Tiger has done so remarkable.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, I think when it comes to the level of precision that you need, when you're talking about not just luck, but the ability to fully own your competition, there's never going to be anyone like Tiger Woods ever again in sports. Forget just hockey, or just forget golf in general. Tiger, what he had done was just absolutely amazing. When you're talking about all of his, marital affairs and all of that stuff that he had going on, and during that time he's still dominating. So for Rory, it just either you have that special sauce or you don't. And I think just long term, and I also just want to point out the way that he was just such a poor sport about it. I know that he came up for
I didn't like that.
afterwards,
I didn't like that.
but
He took off. Yeah, I didn't
golf
like
is
that
a
at all.
gentleman's game. Golf is a gentleman's game. Golf is a gentleman's game, and he wasn't a gentleman. He was a sport. He acted like a little girl.
Yeah, I did not like that at all. I thought that was a really bad look. There's a lot of players that have failed in huge moments who have done their job afterwards. They've done the interviews. They've taken responsibility. They've taken accountability. They take blame, whatever the case may be. We have tons of athletes who do that, and we give them credit when they do that, because that is a hard thing to do, which, okay, we understand that's a hard thing to do, but it's part of your job. You get paid millions and millions and millions of dollars. It is part of your job. It's not only to play the sport. You have to do interviews. That is part of the job. There's no other way about it. I also, before we move on to a fun list, we're going to list our top 5 choke jobs, all sports, which is going to be fun. I do have to give a little bit of credit to Bryson DeChambeau. He also played bad down the stretch. They both, made some bogeys, but that bunker shot on 18, best shot of his life, which he actually said it as well. It's like 55 yards from the hole. All the pressure in the world. You make par, you win the U.S. Open. It's a perfect bunker shot to 4 feet, and obviously you knew he was going to make the putt after that shot. So, yes, he made mistakes. He made some bogeys, but at the end of the day, when it mattered most, he closed the deal. He made the most important most important putts, and Rory didn't. And DeChambeau's got to get credit. He's a 2-time U.S. Open winner now, and he's totally transformed his personality. He was hated, and now he's very well liked because he totally changed his persona, his personality. Got to give credit where credit's due. He was very hated, and deservedly so. He has completely transformed who he is as a person, and got to give him credit for that too.
No doubt, no doubt. Maybe we'll go to the U.S. Open next year. DTS.
Let's do it.
U.S. Open. All right. Let's get to this. Let's get to these to these choke jobs. I'll just run with it, but I'm not going to be as detailed. But there's one I'll just kind of break down. What do you think I'm going to say for number 1?
Well, if you're not going to be a homer and you're going to be honest, 2004 Yankees.
Yep. What more do I need to say? That's the number 1.
It has to be.
That's the number 1. And speaking of choke jobs, Florida's down 2-0 now. So this is, you want to talk about a complete.
We might be able to add to this list.
You want to talk about a choke job? You want to talk about a choke job? Florida Panthers up 3-0, and I mean, dog, if this goes back to Edmonton, how can you not choose Edmonton to force a Game 7? But we'll talk about that later.
And also, at this point, you up 3-0. Combined aggregate between Game 4 and right now is 10-1.
Right. You want to
like what?
Can we just talk about this just for 2 seconds? Because we're talking about meltdowns, okay?
Yeah.
I had thought at first that the game was rigged because I thought that Florida wanted to come out and play and win it at home. How do you go from dominating time of the possession? I've watched every game of this thing. Florida has dominated Edmonton. And then for Edmonton to come out and score 8 goals where they could barely catch a goal, and then for them to go up 2-0 like this is going to be a complete meltdown if this goes.
Now, Florida, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I'm just looking at it quick. Florida has 6 shots on goal, and Edmonton has 12. So you're doubling up on the scoreboard, and you're doubling up on the shot attempts, shots on goal.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. But anyway, we could talk about that forever. So number 2, I got Jana Novotná, 93 Wimbledon finals. And I only say this because she was up in the finals 4 games to 1, up and 40-30. So all it was going to take was a couple more shots and she was going to win. She made some rookie mistakes. Graf capitalized on to win the next 4 games and win the title. Complete meltdown. I'm trying to have a little fun with this. What about the 64 Phillies? With only 12 games left to play, they owned a 6.5 game lead. And then they completely blew it. And then we got on the number 4, we got the Dodgers, we got I I think in 1951, the Dodgers had beat their arch rivals, the New York Giants. They had a 13.5 game lead. The Giants went on to win 37 of their final 44 games to tie the pennant with the Dodgers after the Dodgers already had a 13.5 game lead. They forced a 3-game playoff. The two teams split in the first 2 games. Then for the third, the Dodgers had a 4-2 lead in the bottom of the ninth. Mm-hmm. They had 2 men on base. The Giants were so bad. And then just for want to talk about a meltdown. And then the last one, I think you'll appreciate this one, is the Portland Trail Blazers in the 2000 NBA Western Conference Finals. You remember, It was they were getting ready to pull this one up. They were down 3-1 to Los Angeles. Portland came back to win games 5 and 6 in blowouts to force a game 7. In game 7, Portland was up 71-55. Then with only 10 minutes in the game, they were leading 75-60 to advance to the finals. And then Kobe and Shaq went off and to force to win that. So imagine being down 15 points
in the fourth quarter.
In the fourth quarter, after you already had a 3-1 lead. Talk about the heart of a champion. But
yeah.
So
I'm going to go 5-1, and I'm glad the part of this whole thing was I knew we'd have some similarities, but I also knew we'd have some differences, and it's fun to talk about it. So let's have some fun. Number 5, I went Gene Van de Velde, 1999 British Open.
I had that.
He's on the 18th hole, the final round, a double bogey. He wins. That's it. You don't need a par. You don't need a bogey. You need a double bogey. What does he do? Makes a triple bogey, including, being in the water. He takes it, he takes his socks up. He's like standing in the water. You know exactly what I'm talking about. His ball's like just outside the water. He pulls up all his pants. So anyways, that makes it a little bit more embarrassing. So he makes triple bogey, loses in the playoff. All right, number 4, speaking of playoffs, 1993 NFL playoffs. Back then, Tennessee Oilers, 35. No, Houston. Sorry, I got that wrong. Houston Oilers up 35-3 on the Buffalo Bills. They'll lose 38-35 to a backup quarterback, Frank Reich.
Yeah,
backup quarterback comes back from 32.
Frank Reich. Yeah, that's
Frank Reich. He lost a 35-3 lead to a backup quarterback. That's bad. That's really bad. Keeping it going. Number 3 for me, I went another golf one. Greg Norman, 1996 Masters. 6-shot lead to begin the 4th round. 6-shot lead. And not only did he not win, it wasn't even like a playoff. He played so bad that he just lost after 18 holes on the Sunday. So that was really bad, especially because he never won the Masters. Clearly that was the biggest, best opportunity he had. Speaking of football and big leads, 2017 Falcons, 28-3 in the Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, we know how great Tom Brady is. We understand that. But blowing a 28-3 lead is one of those situations where it's an epic collapse by one team and an amazing comeback by another team. But it is an epic collapse.
3-0. 3-0 now, Edmonton.
Wow.
3-0.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So in the last 5.5 periods, it is now 11-1.
Jesus.
After being up 3-0, like what the hell? It doesn't make any sense. This is why we love sports, though. This is why we love sports. You would think Stanley Cup Finals is over.
Sorry, I had to have it because I just wanted to see if they were going to make this interesting.
I saw that face, and I'm like, I bet you Edmonton scored. And Edmonton scored. Number 2 on my list, 2017 Falcons, 28-3 on the Patriots. Like I was saying, epic collapse, amazing comeback. Both things are true. Patriots still had to make all the plays, but that's a choke job. And number 1, we had the same 2004 ALCS. Yankees are up 3-0 on their hated rivals, the Red Sox, and they just won Game 3, 19-8. So you spanked the shit out of the Red Sox at Fenway in Game 3 to go up 3-0. And then the Red Sox end their 86-year drought by winning 8 straight games. 4 in a row against the Yankees, 4 in a row against St. Louis. So the fact that it was against your biggest rival and the fact that it helped the Red Sox end the 86-year drought, it's like add this and add that. There isn't a worse. There can't be a worse. It's the only time in baseball history, obviously. So that's number one on the choke job. And how could you top that?
I mean, I think
you know, like how can you top that? It's your hated rival. They hadn't won in 86 years. You're the only team in history to blow an 0-3 lead. I don't understand. How can anything ever top that? I mean maybe at some point something will, but that's going to be hard to top as the biggest choke job.
But my thing is, like, I remember that vividly. That was a sophomore. Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school, and they had won game 3, 18-7, and Kevin Brown
was 19-8.
Oh no, I'm sorry, 19-8. I'm sorry. No, was Kevin Brown pitching that game? Was it Kevin Brown? I'm trying to think. He pitched game 3.
I think so.
Yeah. So I'm like, damn, a blowout. I'm like, okay, all right. We gave up 8 runs, but boom, nothing. Just one of those things. But I'm going to say this Edmonton, Florida game, I'm telling you, it's going to be a huge.
Before I forget, sorry, I'm jumping around, but I did say I wanted to give Luka credit for his overall playoff run, considering he got hurt in game 1 of the first round. 22 games, and his total average for the playoffs, 29 points a game, 9.5 rebounds a game, 8 assists per game.
Well, there you go.
And that's on like 4 different injuries, and led the entire NBA in steals in the playoffs as well. So had to give a little credit to Luka, given all his injuries, and he played great. His defense, we all know, got criticized as it should, but considering everything and considering his boy Kyrie didn't help him at all in Boston, Luka had a great playoff run. There's no saying.
I want to talk about Stanley Cup, but I definitely want to get to Mookie Betts because I think this is going to be interesting. But just real quick, because I know we've been talking about it a little bit. Any thoughts, high-level thoughts, just real quick on this NHL, because I really want to get to this Mookie Betts and you getting loud. Any kind of high-level thoughts on the Stanley Cup Finals this far?
Honestly, just so, we're kind of living in real time. We're both just very, very surprised on how it's gone, because not only did Florida go up 3-0, like, they were dominating time of possession, like you said. They were dominating shots. They were, like, every statistic, they were dominating. And Edmonton's second guy, Draisaitl, hadn't done anything the first 3 games. And so, I mean, it was a complete domination the first 3 games. And since that point, as of right now at 9:28 in 5.5 periods, it's 11-1 Edmonton. That's just,
I mean, it's
that's why we love sports,
right? And
Connor McDavid, and shit like this happens.
2 words. I'm going to say Connor McDavid because he scored 2 of the 3 goals in this game. He has been kind of a no-show, and believe it or not, being that he's been anemic, he's 5th all-time in playoff goals. Wayne Gretzky owns 3 of those, 85, 88, 93. 2 of those were with Edmonton in 85 and 88. I mean, just absolutely phenomenal. But I say this, Connor McDavid, it is the best pound for pound skater and offensive. I mean, you just see him, the way that he's able to fly up and down. And this is what I love about hockey. And this is only primarily the reason why I only watch hockey during the playoff time, is that anyone can get hot at the right minute. Anyone can.
Yep.
Anyone.
All right, the other thing is you definitely expected one last thing. You expected the Panthers goalie, Bobgraf. I could say his name right now. I can't say his name. Sergei Bobrovsky. There we go.
There you go. A lot better than
you expected him to bounce back after 8-1. I mean, I think he gave up maybe 4 or 5 of those goals. And granted, I'm not watching it, so I can't say he's at fault for the 2 or 3 goals, but still giving up 3 goals. I mean, as a goalie, that's not good.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's just not good. And you expected how clutch specifically from him, and that hasn't happened. So
no doubt. All right, let's get to this Mookie Betts one, because I, as you know, I do fantasy baseball. I'm currently in 12 leagues. Out of those 12, I have Mookie Betts in 5 of those, so I have a lot of shares. Literally was having an MVP season. But I think this goes into a bigger picture about the Dodgers and where they're at. I think they're currently at 44-29. Not necessarily a stellar record, but not the worst. A team that already had a little bit of holes. Now you have Yamamoto with a sprained rotator cuff. Now Mookie Betts is going to be out for 6 to 8 weeks. 2 of your most productive, 2 of your most expensive players are not going to play for you. Sir, if you are a Dodgers Oh, Florida scored. Okay, 3-1.
Yeah.
If you are a Dodgers general manager, you're a fan. How are
Mhm.
you feeling right now? Because you know what's coming, what this season means. You know what it means.
Oh
What's
yeah,
your feeling?
given all the expectations, all the money they spent, what was it, like over $1 billion combined between the three players? I'm going off memory,
I
but I
mean,
think they
between Yamamoto and
Otani
Otani,
was
it's
over a billion,
billions
right?
between two players. Yeah,
1.1 billion, I think.
absolutely ridiculous. Yeah,
1.1 billion for two players. Just absolute insanity. To your point, with those injuries, which frankly they just happened, so it's hard to say, how it's going to impact them long term. But as of right now, they're number 2 in the NL completely. Phillies are 3 games better, 4 games better overall. So the Dodgers, because their division is mostly trash, considering they don't have another team over 500. They have an 8.5 game lead, which, we're talking, this is June. Things happen crazy.
wait,
We just
wait,
outlined some of them. And to be honest, eight
wait.
game lead in June means like nothing. 8 game lead in July doesn't really mean much either. So
For
right now
20 and
having
38.
8.5 game lead doesn't mean much.
20 and 38. That represents what the Nationals record when they won the World Series 5 years ago, around this time 5 years ago, and they went on a hell of a run and won it. Okay,
Yeah.
so you
That's
look at
why with baseball, and partially because the Red Sox, starting with the Mookie Betts trade, and I'm a Red Sox fan, starting with the Mookie Betts trade have been very pedestrian. And mostly to me, a lot of that is on ownership, because you don't trade one of the best 3 players in baseball in his prime because you don't want to give him a huge contract. You just don't do that. And I could name plenty of mistakes. I think the front office has made a lot of mistakes with the Red Sox. But that being said, I don't pay a ton of attention right now, because really, really, really doesn't matter till like August. Then we're getting okay. Now if you got a like 8 game lead in August, it means a lot more than an 8 game lead in June. August, the trade deadline comes around the end of July. The division races start heating up. Like August is really when I'm like, all right, I'm all in on baseball.
yeah,
I'm gonna. For right now,
but
I just can't get that into it. I just can't.
but like we like data, right? And we look at the sample size of what the Dodgers have been, right? I was there when the Dodgers completely folded against the Diamondbacks, last offseason. And the thing is that Freddie Freeman is another year older. His season has been it hasn't been terrible, but it's been suspect. And then Mookie Betts is a player that you need to play at a very high level, because this lineup is very top heavy. Once when you get past Otani and those guys, Max Muncy is injured. He's not coming back for another month. I mean, when you look at Mookie Betts not coming back until September with the wrist injury, you wonder if he's really going to be compromised with his swing and if he's going to lose his power. I mean, I don't think we picked them to even win the World Series, because we don't trust them to stay healthy throughout the full 162 game season.
And at this point, we know that Clayton Kershaw has not played yet either.
Nope. So if we think that's
and I just out of curiosity looked up like any update whatsoever. And there's nothing when I do a Google search on injury update that's
he
later
pitched in AAA the other day. He pitched. I listened to the radio. He pitched
in AAA. Okay, so
A.
he could be coming around, but
A.
there's no guarantee that Kershaw is going to play in the playoffs because of his recent injuries. So like, you might not have him in the playoffs. Then Mookie Betts is going to be out for a long amount of time. Like the Dodgers is kind of this is what happens when you are extremely top heavy, which they are. They got a lot of time to rebound, and their GM is going to be active most likely at trade deadline, or at least try to be. So they got some time, but like honestly, even if a couple of these dudes don't play in the playoffs, you're expected to win.
There's no excuses. I don't care what anyone else says. There's no excuses.
If you forget anybody else, if you got Betts and Otani healthy in the playoffs,
Freddie Freeman,
I don't even care. You got Betts and Otani, you got probably 2 of the best 3 players in baseball. I don't care about anything else. If you got those 2 healthy, you should win. like, frankly, you should win. If you have two of the probably top 3 baseball players, at worst, top 2 of the top 5, you should be able to win.
Facts. But Ben, get loud for us, sir. Take it away.
Yeah, I feel like, I know we talked a lot about the finals, but I am really, really disappointed in Jason Kidd. Like, he is, if we want to give him credit, up until this point, he did a great job with this team. Number 5 seed, you beat, he didn't have home court advantage any of the playoff series in the West, beat 3 50-win teams, won a lot on the road. I can remember Game 5 at the Clippers, Game 5 at Oklahoma City, obviously Game 5 at Minnesota to win the Western Conference Finals. Like, they won 3 huge Game 5s. The first 2 were to get to Game 6, and they won those series 4-2. So he did a great job up until this point. But, man, did he, run into a wall, get concussed, and forget how to coach? Like, what? Like, also, as much as we want to get on Kyrie a little bit for his performance, I got to be honest, a little bit of that has to go on Kidd. Like, you see him struggling like that. Like, pull him aside in between games or let him bring the ball up more. Give him a little bit more time without Luka on the court. Give it, we always say, put your players in position to succeed. So if somebody is in that much of a slump, which he was in Boston, a little bit that has to go Jason Kidd. How can you make adjustments to get him going? So I got to give a little bit of criticism as far as, the Kyrie thing. But honestly, most of that to me is on Kyrie because it's just him getting in his own head, to be honest, for the most part. But still, Kidd, you got to help him out a little bit. But to have Hardaway Jr., who was your number 3 scorer in the regular season, and to bench him for 2 weeks, didn't play really at all in the Western Conference Finals, didn't play the first 3 games, didn't play the first 2 games. He was really bad in Game 3 because you hadn't played him in 3 weeks. What do you expect? It's not like LeBron or Kyrie or Luka or any of these stars. The superstars have 3 weeks off. They come back, they're going to be fine. A role player, after 3 weeks off, is not going to be fine. After 3 weeks off, he's not going to play well, and he didn't. And what I said earlier was true. I know it was garbage time, but he played great in the 4th quarter. You can say it didn't matter. Of course, it didn't matter. But if a shooter gets hot, it does matter. He got hot in Game 4. Would that have translated to Game 5 if he played in the first quarter, second quarter? Who knows? But there's no denying he should have been playing in meaningful minutes in Game 5 based upon what he did in Game 4. There's nobody that can convince me otherwise that Hardaway Jr. didn't deserve to go into Game 5 in the first quarter or in the second quarter. He should have been in the game in meaningful minutes. And we already highlighted how much he played Maxi Kleber. And it's like, bro, you just look horrible for giving that man that much playing time. And it's like the reason for me, and we're thousands of miles away, we don't talk to Jason Kidd, whatever it is, but it's like you gave Kleber, to his credit, has done great for them in past playoffs. In 2022, when they made the Western Conference Finals, he was great. He was really, really good. So it's like Kidd kept on expecting that Kleber to show up, but it should have been obvious after Game 1 that Kleber was never going to show up. He should not have played. After Game 1, he literally should not have played. And not only did he play, Game 2, he gave him 16 minutes. Game 3, he gave him 10 minutes. Game 5, he gave him 13 minutes. That's not 20 minutes plus, but that's still double-digit minutes. That's Hardaway Jr. should have had basically all those minutes. And you know what? If you wanted to play a big, he didn't play much, and he's a lesser player than Kleber overall. But Dwight Powell, he's decent.
Well, Dwight Powell was a key contributor on that. He was a key contributor on that Mavs team that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you wanted to play a big, Kleber should not have been playing, and his minutes should have been spread between Hardaway Jr. and who we just said. Who did we just say? The big guy. We just said his name. I forget now. We literally just said his name. We both just said his name, and 15 seconds later, we can't remember.
And Edmonton just scored again. Wow, they're up 4-1. Okay, this is over. I don't see Florida scoring 3 goals.
Yeah, no.
This is going back to Edmonton. This is going back.
Yeah. At this point, 4-1. Now it's gonna bother me who that guy was that we.
Oh,
hold on. We got to figure out who this guy is before we sign off. We just said his name. Powell. There we go. Dwight Powell. If you wanted to play big, you wanted to give him big minutes, you should have split Kleber's minutes. Kleber should not have been playing after game 1. Hardaway Jr. and he should have been playing. And Dwight Powell should have been playing those minutes. And the fact that he didn't do that, and we are not coaches, but we know he should have done that, how can you not get criticized for that? You made just stupid decisions. Stupid. People who have never coached basketball. I personally have never been an assistant coach on any team. I've never been a head coach on any team. I should not know better than an NBA head coach. That should not be a thing. I should not be able to like, you cannot like
wow.
I can't let Jason Kidd off the hook. He got totally outclassed and just made stupid decisions the entire time.
I'm not really surprised by it though, because Jason Kidd coached the Bucks, got fired. He coached the Nets, he got fired. Jason Kidd's track record as a coach hasn't necessarily been the best, and I think that they have gotten far more on the back of Kyrie and Luka. That's what I feel. Like when they made it to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago, that was Luka. That was not anything of coaching by Jason Kidd.
I'm sorry, but you said it. Now I have to remember. You were at the Game 7 massacre, right? In Phoenix when Dallas was up by like 30 points at halftime.
That was not Jason Kidd. I was there. I saw it. That was
Luka
not
Jason
Kidd.
Dominated.
Okay? So, and the only reason why they made it this far was because Kyrie and Luka were just so dynamic.
That's the other thing. I know you got 2 ball dominant guys who thrive in ISO, and you got to let them play ISO sometime, like a good portion of the time, because that's where they're best. Okay, that's fair. You got to put your position in players to succeed. Like they're both great at ISO. You're gonna run a lot of ISO because of those. That's their skills. You still got to run a little bit of an offense. Like, you gotta not rely on that 100% of the time.
Definitely.
And it feels like they relied on isolation ball 100% of the time. That doesn't work.
Too much. Exactly.
Doesn't work.
Yeah, man. Yeah, but hey, Florida just scored, so it's now 4-2. So we'll see where this one goes.
Game's been topsy-turvy then.
Yes, it had. They almost scored again. All right,
sir. Watch that game.
Yeah. All right, fans, we appreciate all you guys, all the love, support. Check us on Twitter, DTS Sports 33. Follow our Twitter handles. I still call Twitter. I don't care what anyone else says.
Oh, yeah, it's still Twitter.
Man. Much love, Ben. Until next week, guys, take it easy. All right, DTS out.
Peace.